Hello everybody, today we're talking about the art of burying pieces using our pawns. I made a chessable course about this and I truly believe in the beauty of this part of chess. It's about using our pawns, as in this case, to limit and bury the enemy pieces. Sometimes those victories can give us much more joy than the most dashing attacks and combinations and victories. F.M. Geller said the same thing, one of the greatest attacking players of all time. He said such victories of using a pawn, getting some of the enemy pieces out of play, shutting them out from the game and burying them has given him a great satisfaction. He would prefer winning games like this over the most beautiful attacking games. If you look at AlphaZero's games, you'll find the same team over and over again, right? AlphaZero H pawn, H4, H5, H6, and that H6 pawn is burying the enemy king, enemy rook, and just paralyzing the king side, okay? So this way of training is great because we are learning how we play with our pawns. There is a structure in our pawn play, and we always prioritize piece activity and restriction when we are playing with our pawns, okay? So this motif, by the way, now you're looking at a pattern, right? Burying piece pattern. It's a pattern that is good to know because you see the effect of a single pawn that are really paralyzing these two pieces, and black already achieves a winning advantage. How do we come to this position? It's black to play, folks. Here white is inviting a queen trade on f2, and please stop the video and find a good move for black. This is the beauty of studying such patterns because there's always a connection, right? If you truly understand the value of using pawns to bury the pieces, then your exchange decisions will also improve. You will start exchanging on your own terms, as h4 is a great move for black. Obviously, black is saying, you know what? This queen is very annoying for you on g3, right? Look at this, really limiting those pieces. And if you decide to trade the queens, then I replace my queen with a beautiful pawn on g3. It's like a fishbone pawn. It's like a fishbone that is in the throat of the enemy. Can't even choke, right? This single pawn is really like a fishbone that are paralyzing those two pieces, king and the rook. And here, after h4, white tries to get some breathing air with rook h3. Can you tell me the next move for black, folks? Please stop the video and find a great move, a multi-purpose move that shuts down the game directly. You're a great player if you found the beautiful retreat bishop e6 that is stopping rook h3, but also obviously, right, offers a trade. And here you also see the connection that when the enemy has so many buried pieces, then exchanging off his other guys is helping you strategically, right? Logically, because you want to exchange off everything and leave them with those terrible buried pieces, right? We are forming connections. This way of learning material is always the best. You will have long-lasting retention if you always form such connections. And that's also what you will be training in my course on Chessable, the art of burying pieces. After rook d8, black has two beautiful pieces. White has terrible pieces on the king side. And the game is already over. Rook d2, take on b2. And after rook b1, the game is finished. White must resign. And that's the beauty of such games. The win comes naturally. You don't need to, calculate 25 moves in depth, right? You see, it's a purely strategic victory for black. White had zero counterplay. White pieces could never come back to the game. And you see, that's why Geller was right, because winning such games really gives one pure joy to see such long-term domination and restriction, especially using our pawns, right? Because that's always more beautiful when a, weaker unit like a pawn can be as strong as those pieces. Look at the single effect of a single pawn on g3 on those pieces, guys. I really find these patterns beautiful. That was one of the reasons why I created that course on Chessable. And I'm sure you also find those aesthetically pleasing examples, but not only for beauty. I truly believe in the learning value of this material. Your pawn play will improve, your exchange decisions will improve, and you will overall become a much stronger strategic player. Another dream position, folks. In that course, I first show you the dream position, and then you reverse engineer to reach your dream, right? There's a structure in your thinking. There's a goal in the progress. In this position, look at this. The bishop on f8 is a terrible piece. Black is suffering enormously in this pawn structure in developing this bishop. right? The knight on f6 will go here probably, but there's really no progress and prospect for this bishop on f8. Plus, white has the outpost on e5 for his pieces. You see, that's a positional pawn sacrifice, and white just played e6 to force this trade, and white did that to bury this bishop on f8. How did we come to this position that you just seen? It comes from the mainline advanced Caro-Kann. I'm sure many of you have seen similar pattern before. After g4, well, the main move is bishop b7, and if black drops back the bishop to h7, then we go for this move, right? e6. It's a positional pawn sacrifice that is designed to really bury the black bishop on f8, also to activate our pieces on e5, break the pawn structure, weaken the black king. You see the long-term effect of this positional pawn sacrifice e6. If you don't play e6, black will play e6 and get the bishop out easily. So you also hinder the opponent's development, right? It's a beautiful move, and that's a pattern that must be known, right? I'm sure many of you have seen this pattern before, and white already obtains an advantage in this position. Let's say queen d6 to give a room for the king. Then we can actually start playing like this. Of course, a beautiful move, because we are still stopping, right, black from pushing e5. Why? Because black wants to push e5 and then e6 to get this bishop into the game, right? But you see, restriction continues, knight f3, restriction continues, knight e5. That's a beautiful exchange, because by threatening knight f7, we actually force this trade. But now look at this. If I ask you which black pieces are buried right now, you tell me. Look at this bishop and look at this knight, right? Again, pawn play connects to restriction in this case. The whole opening logic for white is to restrict the black minor pieces. In the course, you will first see the bishop restrictions. Bishop on f8, bishop on c8, you know, other bishops, for example, bishop on b7. You will see how pawn play connects to bury those pieces. And then we are moving to knights, right? In this case, if I ask you, for example, which black piece is buried, has no life, has no future, I'm sure you've seen the knight on g7, folks, right? That knight is buried by a single pawn on g4. Fianchetto knights in chess are usually terrible, and you see it directly and so clearly in this structure. Notice the effect of a single pawn on g4 in shutting down the piece completely, and the knight itself is a tactical viability. It's white to move. Please, short calculation to win material. You're a great player, folks. If you found the move knight f6 check, well, that's a very forcing move, right? That forces this trade, because if the king goes here, can you tell me the next move? Bam, rook d8 and the mate or collapse, right? We'll follow on the next move. I can take anything in this position and I'm just directly winning. So after knight f6 check, bishop takes is a must. But after a simple recapture, look at this knight. The knight on g7 is trapped. It's a beautiful example that shows us really, right, the value of this course, because it's totally about pawn play and restriction. And this pattern you should know by heart. So whenever you see a knight on g7, for example, this move should come very natural to you. I will show you the connection between this position and the master game. Here, Geller versus Mikhail Shishin. Geller with the white pieces, he looks at the knight on g7, and he doesn't want to play g4 directly because his king will be exposed, right? There's a queen, there's a bishop. So he goes for a mass exchange operation first with takes, queen c4. He wants to trade all the pieces and leave black with a terrible knight on g7, and the burying operation ensues. First, he improves the rook on the 7th rank with tempo, and then comes the next move. Can you tell me, folks, which move white made in this position? Bam, g4, right? Single move, pawn move g4, and the knight is completely shut down from the game. That's a pattern that is worth remembering and knowing. And also notice that he didn't play g4 directly in this position, right? Because that will expose his king, there are knight e5s and so on. But he created the conditions for g4 to work in a simpler setting. You also see the connection between exchanges and leaving the terrible pieces on the board for the enemy. And now the game plays itself. After h5, do you think white should take on h5, push g5, or play h3? Obviously, we will play h3 and we'll keep our pawn on g4, which is single-handedly burying that knight on g7. b5, black is desperate, but white activates a knight and creates this beautiful threat knight f6. As we've seen before, black has no defense basically. So black grabbed one more pawn, but the knight on g7 will be taken on the next move. Incredible, right? That's a beautiful game in chess history. I can even show you the final phase. Geller directly goes for a mating attack with rook h3 and rook h8. That's what usually works when you have extra material, you have more attackers, so it makes sense to go for a direct attack against the enemy king. And here, just when black is ready to create some counterplay, Geller finds a great multi-purpose move that finishes off the game directly. Can you stop the video and find white's next move, folks? You're a great player if you found Geller's beautiful multi-purpose bishop c5, because if the bishop is captured, then the mate will follow very, very soon, right? But if the bishop is not captured, then I threaten a deadly rook f8 check, and the game is over. And finally, bishop c5 is shutting down the rook, thus giving zero counterplay to black. This game is one of the most beautiful games in chess history. That's why it's in this course on Chessable, the art of burying pieces. You see how masters, they never miss out on such chances to limit and bury enemy pieces, but they create the right conditions, right, to make that idea work. This game also shows us the connection between the middle game and end game, and how a single idea of burying this knight on g7 can dictate the entire strategy in the middle game. White is basing the entire play already here, right? You might say already here. White's whole game plan is based on limiting and shutting down that knight away from the game, right? You see the value of this learning, because this way there will be structure in your thinking. Whenever you're playing with your pawns, you'll always think about your own pieces. How do I make my pieces happy? But also, maybe equally importantly, how do I limit the enemy pieces so they don't become happier as a result? Now I can leave you with this homework position to give you a chance to consolidate what you just learned in this video today. It's white to play, guys. I want you to look at the whole board, evaluate the position first. What is the right continuation for white? I want you to create a plan for white, an idea, a very logical idea that looks very promising in converting your endgame advantage. Please write to me on YouTube your ideas, your moves, and a brief summary of why you chose that move. You can give me some lines as well, like a very brief calculations. And I'm really happy about this course. I put my heart and soul into it. I found those patterns beautiful myself. So while you study this course on Chessable, you will appreciate the deeper beauty of chess strategy, but also your pawn play will improve. There will be structure into your strategic play. And I'm sure you will have beautiful victories where you manage to shut down one of the enemy pieces and they're suffering, they're crying. Really, really, winning such games give me, as a strategic player, great joy. And I'm sure you will also have great joy in your games. Please don't hesitate sharing your victories with me if you manage to bury enemy pieces. And please like and subscribe if you like this video. That's really important for me to keep on producing such content. And I will catch you on the next episode with similar strategic content, folks. Bye-bye.